Do you have any idea how many successful entrepreneurs who've had what other people would classify as setbacks? Car accidents, infertility, immigration, addiction. The list goes on and on. Any idea how many successful entrepreneurs have turned those things into an unfair advantage? This is the Unfair Advantage. Turning life's challenges into your secret weapon for success. Life throws curveballs. They're not setbacks, they're setups for success. We dive deep into the lives of amazing entrepreneurs who've embraced their struggles, turned them into strengths, and built kick-ass businesses. And it's not about dwelling on past mistakes, it's about moving forward, building resilience, and creating success despite all the odds. Before we jump into these incredible stories, a big shout out to Brad's agency, ScreamingCow.com, where we turn dreams into digital realities. Let's do this. This is the Unfair Advantage. And now your host, Brad Starnes.
And we're back with another episode of the Unfair Advantage. I am your host, Brad Starnes. Today, I'm excited to be joined by the one and only Adam McChesney, who is the owner, or is the partner now at Height Digital, owner of Auto Glass Repair, STL, and the CEO of Builders of Authority. Adam left his medical device sales career in July of 2020 to pursue digital marketing, and he grew that agency from nothing to over $1 million in revenue in just 15 months. Adam is also the host of the Entrepreneurial podcast, which I think was rebranded as of today, and has now reached 100 episodes. And before becoming a partner in the Height corporate company, Adam earned Height Digital Franchise of the Year for both 2021 and 2022. He's an Inc. 5000 member and much more. Prior to introducing Adam, I did want to remind everyone that today's episode is sponsored by Screaming Cow Marketing Group. We are a full-service marketing agency that specializes in helping service businesses grow more leads through unforgettable marketing experiences. Finding a marketing agency who cares for your business as its own is like finding a needle in a haystack. So if your business is looking for more business to do, call the guys who move. Adam, well, welcome on.
Brad, thanks for having me, man. And that's an incredible introduction. I appreciate you doing that. But before we get started, if you don't mind, I just wanted to say how proud I am of you, seeing how far you've come really in the last year of like being afraid to be on video to now being this freaking podcast host, to doing all this stuff, man. You make it look easy. So thanks for having me, man. But I wanted to say kudos to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely appreciate it. It's crazy just looking back over the last, 6 to 9 months I've been working with you, and how far things have come. And I was just like so afraid in a way to get out there. And even last night I get a text from somebody who is like, hey, I just wanted to share how incredibly impressed and proud of you I am. Your content is inspiring me every day to live the life the way that you do. And it's like, this is somebody who I've not seen really interact with any of my posts or content or anything like that. And probably one of the people that I was afraid of like ticking off in some way from the content. And obviously that is the exact opposite of what happened. So
yeah, no, they say about like 1/10 of the people that you actually impact are actually interacting with you. And that doesn't even go down to like the trickle down effect of like you making that guy's life better in some way. Think about how many people he's now impacting. So it's cool to see, man. Yeah. And it's cool to see what you're doing.
Absolutely. So why don't you go ahead and kind of jump into like your background, how you got into entrepreneurship and what that whole journey looked like for you?
Yeah, of course. So I graduated college in 2014, kind of stumbled my way around in 2015, trying to figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up. Ended up getting into medical device sales. So I worked for 2 different companies, a small company here locally for 18 months. And then for 3.5 years, I was on at ResMed. So if anybody's familiar with the CPAP equipment, the mask, all that stuff, I managed about a $25 million a year territory here in the state of Missouri. Incredible company, incredible products, pretty much what I thought I always wanted to do. But I got promoted early on at the age of 26 going into 27 and ultimately went from making $75,000 the previous year to $200,000 that next full year. And so what I thought was like I was going to do forever, I started to be like, what's next? What's next? Because I didn't know really about entrepreneurship, but I knew I wanted to become an entrepreneur. And so the wheels literally started to spin. Right. So 2018, I'm sitting in a hotel room and I was traveling a bunch right before Thanksgiving. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, there's got to be a way to make money and do it differently than what I'm doing right now. Because I was really craving that freedom. And so I typed in online how to make money online, and I got retargeted by an ad on Facebook, basically selling me on the dream of being a digital landlord through digital marketing, and taught me how to build websites, SEO. So I paid $7,000 at the time, which was like my first investment truly in myself. And from 2018 to 2020, I ended up building over 200 websites myself and just renting them out, selling the leads, flipping the website, doing all the stuff kind of on the side. But I didn't make a lot of money from it because I was kind of afraid of what this possibly could be. Well, then pandemic happens. I said 2020 was going to be my year. And then I ended up going full time in July of 2020. My wife and I, Delaney, we got married in 2019. I had just proposed to her in 2018, right before I ultimately bought that course. And I kind of said like, hey, when we do get married, when we do have kids eventually, which we just had our firstborn Murphy not too long ago, I said like, I don't want to be forced to travel and forced to go across the country because somebody else is telling me that I have to do this. I want to do it on my own terms. So a lot of people hear that and they see me say that and they're like, Adam, will you travel quite a bit now? It's like, yes, but I'm choosing to do so because of the impact that it's ultimately going to have. Nobody's telling me that I have to do it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It is crazy that mindset shift in a way. It's like, I don't have to do these things. I choose to do them. And how it takes people a lot of like changing in their mind to really change the idea. Because a lot of people, that's all they know is I can only do what I'm told. Like even my wife, she was working for Oracle, and it was like she had no choice when they told her she was going, she was going. And people don't realize that in some cases you can build a life where you do actually have that choice and everything. So obviously this podcast talk a little bit about kind of what your unfair advantage is for everybody else. It's a little bit different. So kind of curious as to what that unfair advantage is for you.
Yeah. So when I was 12, I found out that I was a type 1 diabetic. So, okay. A lot of people might know somebody that has type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, all that good stuff. But I was losing a bunch of weight I guess I was in the 6th grade, and I was only like, I can't remember how big I was, but like 110 pounds, and I lost like 20 pounds in a span of a couple weeks. And I was going to the bathroom all the time, like freaking sweating everywhere. And like parents didn't know if this was just puberty hitting or if like our kid's sick or whatnot. So I ended up finding out that I was a type 1 diabetic. They say like it's hereditary. So apparently my great grandpa had like early signs of it before it was like really widely known. My sister, crazy enough, also has it. She found out when she was 21, type 1 diabetic. But yeah, when I was 12, found out I had type 1 diabetes. And I don't really like, everybody asked me like, what was it like before, like eating all the candy and like the desserts, because my grandparents own a bakery, and drinking, regular soda and all this. I'm like, I honestly don't remember what life was really like before that. Yeah. But yeah, that's my unfair advantage.
That's so you got diagnosed at 12, and then you said your sister at 21.
Yes.
That's crazy. Just like the difference in the age gap and like how it hits you so much earlier than it hit her. So I imagine it was a lot harder for her, just because she went through basically her entire life, more than you had in there. So how does being diabetic kind of, I guess I'd say, relay or correlate over to being an entrepreneur? Like I imagine there's a lot of things, being an entrepreneur, we talk about being disciplined and different aspects like that. So I imagine being diabetic, there's a lot of aspects there as well.
Dude, frankly, it sucks. So like I look back and I was thinking about, what we were going to talk about today on the episode this morning when I was out working out, and my blood sugar was like going low as I'm finishing my walk. And it's gotten easier to maintain my blood sugar and insulin levels and things like that with technology and obviously the healthier lifestyle and all that stuff. But like when I was growing up and I played college soccer, I'd go back and I was like, man, like it was so like there was so much unknown because I didn't know what my blood sugar was going to be as the game was starting. And then I'm having like some Skittles and some Gatorade to get it up a little bit. Well, then like I don't play as much, like all these different factors that go in that you're basically playing this freaking guessing game with your body. And translating into entrepreneurship and things like that, it's gotten easier over the years because I have a pump now and I have a Dexcom monitor that they all kind of talk together. But there's still days where for whatever reason, something goes off, my blood sugar goes super high, goes super low, and I got to still freaking show up and I got to get ready to go. Like last week when I was, on stage in Dallas at an event, my blood sugar was super high. For whatever reason, typically like when I travel and things like that and I don't know what I'm eating, I usually eat about the same thing every single day when I'm at home. There's all these other freaking things that I have to take into consideration. So I'm like on stage, I need more water. I'm sweating. I'm already nervous. And sometimes I forget that I have it because I just like show up and deliver and I go and do that stuff. But like sometimes it just frankly, like it does just suck. But the way that I look at it is like there's so many other things. Like if I'm on my deathbed, hopefully many years from now, and I look that this is the worst thing that happened to me with all the other stuff that could possibly happen, I'm like, it's manageable. It's not curable, but like it almost to a degree, you have everything good to go. It's taught me a lot about myself and truly like the importance of health overall, even though like there was nothing I could have done to prevent this.
Yeah. So I think I've told you in different conversations we've had, but I'm on that weight loss medication, Wegovy, and then there's Ozempic, which is for people who are diabetic. Wegovy is more if you're just overweight but haven't hit that type 2 diabetic point. And one of the things that I noticed on there was how much more I had to be concerned about what I was putting in my body. And simple things like going to the gym. If I don't eat something like if I eat too much, I'll obviously get sick going to the gym. But if I don't eat anything at all and I go to the gym first thing in the morning, like it is game over for me. It's not even worth going to the gym in my opinion, because I just have to have like something small in me to help regulate some of that for me. And I'm not diabetic. And so those are just like small challenges that I've had to go through with that medication. And as I was kind of thinking about what we were going to talk about and all that today, I was like, I can't even imagine what it's like for somebody like you to have to manage all of that and everything that goes with it. So so you had mentioned, you were 12 whenever you got diagnosed. Obviously between then and now there was, a lot of people or groups or something that kind of helped support you in that journey of kind of going through being diabetic and all that. Is there kind of, somebody that you can think of that was really the most involved either back then or even now being an entrepreneur? Like, is there other people that who are also type 1 diabetic who you have had to kind of lean on as people with advice and guidance?
That's a really good question. And to be honest, I've never been asked that question before.
Okay.
thinking back on it, like my parents obviously super, super supportive along the way. Like when I was 12, 13, 14, like still relatively young and having to like you used to have to dial out the insulin in a pen and jab yourself and do it over and over and over again and do the finger pricks. And like, so they were really helpful back then. I don't necessarily think that there was an individual person per se. I would just say like collectively, especially growing up, like I didn't want to go to, like there was one other kid I went to St. Francis here in Oakville, and there was one other kid that I knew at the school that had diabetes. And he was just like happy-go-lucky kid. I actually still know him to this day. You're younger than me, but like I was afraid to like be that other kid with him. Like what were my friends going to think about him? Like, that's just what you think of when you're 12. There was nothing. Like nobody, I mean, I was overwhelming myself thinking about what was going to happen. But like now specifically in my life, like my wife, Delaney, is a nurse by trade. So like she studied all this stuff, knows some of the diabetes stuff more than I know it. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's been nice that like I've never had like a hospital event, or I've never gone into a coma because of diabetes, because that's sometimes what happens.
Yeah.
I just have a really solid support system. I think like dating back to that, there was nothing crazy or like outside of what I thought might be happening. But I also will say like I'm really hard on myself for like my health of where it's at right now, only because I'm at almost the heaviest I've ever weighed. I've done all these things, but like I'm working out more than I ever have before. I've consistently pretty much since I was 12, other than a couple of years, like right after college, like been fairly healthy for most of my life. So I think that obviously plays like a pretty big key part into it, is that like I didn't take it and be like, all right, I'm just going to, be lazy or whatever. Like I've been pretty consistent over the course of my life.
Yeah, it's you're talking about growing up. How it was you and one other guy? I actually just recorded my intro episode for the podcast, kind of doing things out of order, in which I record these live and then doing the intro before everything's rolled out. But one of the things I mentioned in there is I grew up with a stutter, and so for people who are listening, if you hear any pauses and things like that, that's what that's from. But like I didn't know anybody growing up, and so when I first got involved with that, I think it was in second grade, I was just told I was going to this classroom because I was more intelligent than everybody else, which obviously was crap and was a lie. And but I was the only one of me that I knew until 2020. So 3.5 years ago, roughly, was the only time that I'd ever met anybody. And so for me, I was like, I grew up not knowing if there was somebody else out there like me, or you read things online and all of that, but I was like, where are they? Because they're nowhere near me. And now that I've kind of shared that more publicly with others, I've been meeting people like crazy who do. And so I imagine that that's kind of with you as well. Now that you kind of share more that you're diabetic, I'm sure you have people all the time. They're like, oh, I'm diabetic, or I know somebody is, and all that.
Yeah, when I've mentioned anything about diabetes, or even when I haven't, when I've taken like progress pictures of my health, people see the diabetes stuff, and I get 4 messages like, "Oh, you're diabetic" or whatever, and then I'm like, one lady this past time, I was like, "Yeah, if you scroll up a couple more messages, you'll see that a year ago when I shared the same type of progress picture, you'll see that you asked the same question." But that is what it is. But like, yeah, when you and this goes to anything in life, when you like manifest things out to the world, they start to come back. So when you speak, you speak it out, like all these different things. There's the analogy where, you go and you're like, man, I've wanted this car for so long, and you go buy the car and you think that like it's this exclusive car, and like you're the only one that you've ever seen has it. And then you drive home, and over the next couple of days, you start to see that freaking car over and over again. That car's always been there. You've just never been also the person in the car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's crazy. And so you said Delaney's a nurse. She's at home with Murphy right now. I don't know if you guys are planning on her going back to work or anything like that, but so she actually went down the nursing track, and my wife began down that track, but did not complete, wound up transitioning into, I think like health sciences, with like a business emphasis or something like that. And so, but my mom is a nurse, and she began her entire career working with patients who are diabetic and everything. Like that's all she's known. And now she works for the company that makes Wegovy and Ozempic. And so that's been all of her life, kind of on the type 2 side of things. But it's funny, a lot of times something will go on and I'll call my mom, and Avery's like, what about me? I'm like, she finished nursing, like you did it. And so I always get in trouble for that, but it's funny. So, so we've kind of talked about being diabetic, being an entrepreneur, kind of how all those things kind of play together. Where are things at right now with you, with Adam? I know you kind of gave a little live on Facebook the other day of kind of what's going on with you. But given everything that's going on, and I imagine people listen to this, they'll hear what's going on. They're like, okay, how does this guy manage his diabetes? Because he's always doing something. When does this guy sleep? When does he see his son? When does he see his wife? All of that.
Yeah, I'm working on on kind of holding myself accountable to, like, when it's the end of the day, it's the end of the day. And it's always tough, especially as like you're building stuff and new stuff, because that's like what we do as visionaries and entrepreneurs. Like, everybody thinks it's like, and it is tough, don't get me wrong, like working long hours or like doing stuff on the weekends, but like, it's also freaking fun sometimes too, right? When you're in this like phase of like, man, like we're getting close, we're pushing through, we're doing this stuff that like, that's what we get quote unquote paid to do, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, I left medical device sales. The first 9 months of my journey of an entrepreneur, I was doing everything on my own, spinning my wheels, working freaking really long hours, and the money wasn't there, right? Because I was undercharging. Didn't have a whole heck of a lot of clients because I was the everything, wearing of all of the hats. And then got on with Hike Digital, became a franchise for 2 years. So grew our agency pretty significantly to a multi-million-dollar agency in a very short period of time. And then became a partner at All of Hike this past year in June of 2023. And really what that came down to, Brad, is that I started to realize what the future was going to hold, similar to what I did 5 years prior when I was in medical device sales. And I just realized, like, I'm not a CEO of a multi-7-figure digital marketing agency. Not that I can't do it, because I was on a podcast yesterday and we were saying, can you not do it, or can you do it?
Right.
So I can't do it. It's more so about the passion and the purpose of what I truly believe I'm set out to being able to do. And over the course of the last couple of years, where I really grew my agency was through personal branding. And my impact, my mission statement is literally to impact as many people, or I guess my purpose, to impact as many people as I possibly can, whether that's directly in their business or their personal lives. And so on the digital marketing side, like, I connect with so many people. I go to so many different events. My online sphere of influence is pretty significant compared to a lot of people. And I realize, like, I end up working with less than 1% of those people. So if that's all I have to offer, if that's all I'm focused about, then I'm not going to be fully ever in my purpose. And so an opportunity came to take my franchise, all those good things, and merge it in with JC and everybody over at Hike Digital. So we made that move, really setting me up to do some of the Builders of Authority stuff, which I know obviously obviously a lot about. But with that, it's a personal branding focused course that'll be launching. Right now, the big thing is the group mastermind, one-to-one coaching, and then we're throwing our event in March, really around the lines of, how do I help entrepreneurs be known as the entrepreneur and not the business? Because for so long, I saw what the impact did for me, but I would talk to people that are like, man, nobody knows who I am, talking about themselves. They just know my business.
Yeah.
If I ever want to sell my business, if anything ever happens to me, like, you lose your identity. And so I felt this calling, I felt this opportunity to be able to, like, truly dive into it, which is why I'm throwing the event, which is why I rebranded the podcast and officially announced that today, to go from entrepreneur to Builders of Authority, because I believe so much about what that can do for people. And I've already seen in 6 weeks since we launched it, what it can do for people. And so I feel like that's more right now. It's a side hustle, if you will. It's a passion project. It is what it is. But, like, we're bringing in revenue, and we're bringing in revenue a lot quicker than when I grew my agency the first time. So you can call it a side hustle, you can call it whatever, but I mean, at some point here in the near future, it's going to be my main thing. Height won't go away for me. Goal is, how do we work Adam out of the day-to-day and be a board member, be a brand ambassador, whatever you want to call it there. But yeah, man, that's what we got going on.
Yeah, it's crazy that you said with, like, the Builders of Authority and personal brand, like, people need to know how to, like, really separate themselves from the business. And I mentioned that to you whenever I was onboarding, like, my last business. It unfortunately failed after 18 months, but, like, who I was that business. I was, there was the long hours and everything, but everybody, when I lived in Kansas City, everybody knew me for that business and knew I just everything I talked about. I joked that I like ate, worked out, shit, everything that business. Like that's just who I was, and I didn't have anything that separated me from it. And so that's one thing that I've been very intentional with the personal branding, bills of authority, and all that is. My hopes now is one day with my agency to be able to get to the point where I can have it kind of in a way run itself as Hyde is beginning to do without you and as you transition out. And I don't want to hit a point where that happens or I sell the agency or something like that. And I don't know who I am anymore because that's all I was. And so like this podcast is one piece of that. Like I can continue to do this podcast and have these conversations, whether or not the agency is there or whatever other business is going to be there down the road. And this was obviously not planned for this episode, but for anybody who's listening, I believe we're going to air this before the event happens. Adam does have his Builders of Authority event here. Is it March 13th?
March 13th, and then there's an extra little mini workshop day on the 14th. So
Okay.
March 13th, 14th.
Yeah, and that you guys are going to the Blues game afterwards, right?
Yep. So VIP ticket holders, we got a private suite at the Blues game. Should be a great time, and yeah, super excited.
Okay. I mentioned this to you, but everybody else, I would be there if I wasn't already going to be on a cruise. So I'll either be in Jamaica or Haiti or the Bahamas. I forgot where we're at on that day. That's where I'll be at. But just based off all the value and everything that I've gotten out of just I can't believe it's only been 6 weeks we've been doing this program. Definitely would recommend anybody else to go. So kind of going back to the diabetes aspect and everything. Looking back, is that something that you would change? Like, would you go back and wish that you never had that happen to you?
I would be lying if I said no.
Okay.
Or I would be lying if I said I wouldn't go back and change it. I can't remember how you phrased the question, but if I could live without it 100%, of course I would. But I don't think that I would be the person I am today without it, if that makes sense. So I go back to the point of like, if this is the worst thing that ultimately happens to me over the course of my lifetime, then like I would take that to the bank today. So, I would definitely like, if all things considered, I could get rid of it and never have it. Yeah. But I don't think I would be who I am.
Yeah. Well, the hopes is that you can eventually just make enough money. You can fund research and everything, and eventually it will just all go away from there. So, so as we're wrapping up and everything, obviously there's probably people listening who are either diabetic or they have some sort of medical condition, I'm going to call it, that has affected the way they do life, they live life, affect the way that they do business and all of that. So if you were to say something to those individuals, kind of tying in advice to also entrepreneurship, but also that medical condition, everything, what is that advice that you would give?
I think there's 2 pieces of advice. The first one being, whatever your situation is you're not alone. It might be unique because of other factors, that you might be a diabetic that also has X, Y, and Z, and all the other personal side, and your business is failing and all that stuff. But like at the core issue or the core condition that you have, like, unless it's a super, super rare thing, like other people are probably going through or have gone through exactly what you're going through. So you're not alone. And secondarily to that is everybody has something that is an unfair advantage, right? Mm-hmm. No pun intended, but like everybody has that, right? So like if you're on a soapbox about like why you can't accomplish something because of X, Y, and Z, somebody else has X, Y, and Z different, maybe even worse than you have it today. Don't let that, whatever is unfair or whatever condition is holding you back, utilize it as that advantage and just an extra motivating aspect, or utilizing it as your story, right? Like said it perfectly earlier, is like, now you know a bunch of people that have gone through or are going through what you do. Relationships, connections, you never know when that's going to bring you to that next level. You're now using this as an outlet to help your personal brand, but more importantly, impact many people who are just like yourself, right? And so what we typically will keep close to our chest, because we either think that nobody cares, it's not important enough, or we just don't want people to know. Usually those are the things that we can be known for. Those are the things that can make the biggest impact, and just freaking dive into it, right? Lean into it, make it happen. Don't feel like you need to hide it.
Yeah. I'd also add on that. Don't think that your unfair advantage is any less to talk about compared to anybody else. As I announced that I was doing this podcast and I was chatting to people, they're like, oh, I don't really think I have one. I had one guy say I grew up in a nice neighborhood. I'm like, that's not what this is about. Like, it's everybody has their own unfair advantage, their own setback in their own way. And yours is no more or no less valued than anybody else's. So that's one thing I would add on top of there. So awesome. Well, I would not be doing my job if I did not listen to the little note that my wife put in my notes for me. Was to tell everybody how cute Adam's baby is Murphy. Every time he posts, she's always like showing me her phone. She's like, "Do you want one?" And I'm like, "No." They're like, "Not yet. Eventually, there's a plan." But I've been bouncing around that note. I'm like, I'm not going to do it. But knowing her, she's going to go through and listen to every episode. So I want to make sure I don't get in trouble for that. So,
Smart,
is there any last words, anything like that you would like to share?
No, I mean, I think that we covered a lot of good stuff, man. I think if anybody, has questions or they want to, stay connected, you can follow me on Instagram at Adam L. McChesney, or you can go over to AdamMcChesney.com. Brad, just thank you for having me on, man. I love what you're doing, and I want to continue to be able to serve you and people in your network. So if anybody has questions, or if anybody is a type 1 diabetic or type 2 diabetic and has questions on how I've navigated some of this stuff, feel free to reach out, and always happy to be able to serve wherever I can.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Adam, it was awesome having you. I was, of course, like, I got to have Adam on one of the first couple episodes. So very glad that you're the second episode that they're rolling out. This was a great conversation. So for anybody that's listening on here, please don't forget to subscribe to the podcast episode and leave us a 5-star review so we can continue to produce more episodes like this. Please also share this episode on your LinkedIn, Facebook, anything that you use on social. And please not only tag myself, but our guests, that way Adam and myself can continue to share more impact and get more exposure with others, sharing what our unfair advantage is. So until next time, this is your unfair advantage.
You've been listening to The Unfair Advantage. We're all human. We all make mistakes. But Brad's mission is to turn those into useful tools. Tools that can propel you forward like you've never imagined. He's not an expert, but he's been in the trenches. He hit rock bottom when his fintech company folded in 18 months, and he was knee-deep in the poor me attitude. But you know what? He bounced back, and now his mission is to help you do the same. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. Visit the website at bradstarnes.fyi. The podcast URL is unfairadvantagepodcast.com. And find Brad on Facebook and LinkedIn at Brad Starnes Official. See you next time on The Unfair Advantage.